Hi guys, this is Schumer Carlson. In today's video, I'm going to give you my rolling review of Disney's George of the Jungle. Yes, the movie that started Brandon Fraser's career, and basically I think, and basically that was the precursor to him being the lead in the Mummy franchise that we know and love of Brian of O'Connell. So here we go, guys. I love this movie. So here's the gist of it. George of the Jungle is basically Tarzan, but in live action, but without the name Tarzan. And George falls in love with Ursula Stanhope, who's played by the great and funny actress Leslie Mann, who's married to Judd Apatow. Judd Apatow, the master of of funny rom-coms like Knocked Up, and another great movies. But anyway, Ursula Stanhope has a lot of money, so her family's really high up on the social food chain, and she has her fiance named Lyle Vandergroot. Even with his last name, Vandergroot is a fancy rich guy's name. But Lyle is overbearing and just playing a little bit pushy on the every sense of the word, but also pushing on sense of personal space. Here's the gist of it. So Ursula, she's an adventurer. She loves to travel, and she basically has gotten herself a guided tour through the jungles of Africa. To be more specific, through the jungles of Africa, landing her ultimate landing spot would be on Ape Mountain, which is a mountain shaped like an ape, where we find George the Jungle swinging away. But here's the thing about George: he's a great swinger, he's a great jungle dude, but he doesn't know his sense of he doesn't have a good sense of awareness, specific tree awareness. He slams into trees, but we still love the dude. We still love George. But anyway, Ursula gets lost. Gets lost in the jungle in a very untypical jungle fashion. Ursula and Lyle gets surprised by a lion. After seeing this lion, Lyle runs away. Ursula is scared scared to her money. Her money socks. But George, that's when George comes in and saves her. And George starts a great wrestling funny battle with Seth Lion. Ursula is in complete, utter amazement, happy amazement and shock. Both happy shock and happy amazement that she's seeing this jungle dude basically pick up this lion like he was a piece of lettuce and just throw him around and also showing off. So after George gives this line a total WWE type of clinic of a beatdown, Ursula can't believe is still in shock, and they have and eventually George takes eventually Ursula wants George to take her back to the group and Lyle and her fiance Lyle, who also brought with him by himself two very sneaky and very dastardly hunters who want to hunt and capture a gorilla, an ape, so they could use this ape and reach for the stars in Las Vegas, and they eventually do just that because George before he became George of the Jungle that we know and love, he was a regular baby, but the plane that he was on crashed into Ape Mountain, and the baby, aka George, was excommunicated from the flight crew and the passengers until Brother Ape found him lost. And basically both Ape and George grew up together. Technically, so that makes them technically brothers. Yes, brothers. And George found a pet elephant named Chep. And Chep is a very playful, but also funny pranking elephant. Anyway, George, in a romantic twist of fate, along the way of searching for her party, Ursula just basically surrenders and spends the night in George's treehouse until the next day, and at this point, guys, Ursula, both George and Ursula have hit a tree, but the only person to strike the tree with her face was Ursula, and she was knocked out. and she was knocked out. So she was knocked out. So George basically took Ursula, being the good guy that he is, to uh, to his treehouse, and that's when we see Ape for the first time talking to George, Brother Ape talking to George. Then eventually, for a tiny for a tiny bit, for a tiny for a tiny bit, for a little bit, Ursula opens her eyes and basically says to George, "Where am I?" She has no clue where she is, and basically George says, "I'm George. This is Brother Ape," and obviously George is enamored, surprised that starts to identify 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 that Ursula, it doesn't look like him at all. That Ursula's not a dude like him. She's a girl. And Brother Ape points that out. And then Ursula again, and this time she opened her eyes for a little bit, and she says, "Would he tell the ape to stop talking? Would he tell the ape to stop talking?" Meanwhile, all this time, Lyle has been telling a lie of a story that he was attacked, or that he and Ursula were attacked by the lion, which was an absolute absurdity coming from Lyle, because he didn't do anything. He ran away. He ran away and left Ursula alone until the hero, you know, the hero, George, our hero, George saved her. But all this time, Lyle has been lying to the guiding group, and he also had his hunting buddies with him, and he basically lied about basically telling an amazing story, which was a total lie. Until Lyle tripped himself onto a pile of elephant Chep poop. Yes, Chep poop, and Lyle's face went straight in it. Eventually, Ursula was starting to get the hang, getting used to talking to George and just hanging out, and basically and Brother Ape started to notice that George was changing in a good way, that he was feeling that his heart was starting to patter like a like a cheetah, like a cheetah for 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 Ursula, for for Ursula. So Brother Ape said, I'm going to teach you, George, how to sweep her off her feet." And Ape basically said, "Do do like do the same thing as me. Blow your cheeks like this, and that's how you will impress her. And do mating sounds." So George did that. It did not work. It did not work. So later that night, Ursa was sitting outside the treehouse on the edge, and basically said, George want George danced with Ursula, and Ursula said, "Thank you, George, but I look I'm a super goofy dancer." And basically George said, George doesn't care. Doesn't care. You, Ursula needs confidence in herself. And with that affirmation of friendship slash crushing at the same time, Ursula basically said, "You're right, George. You're right, George." Subtextually, of course. And basically, both George and Ursula dance the night away, and dance the firewood dance the firewood away. The next day, Lyle and the touring group of two of these of this touring company, 28 Mountain, found and were surprised that they found George's treehouse, and Lyle's two hunting henchmen, were surprised to see that Brother Ape was a talking ape, and one of Lyle's hunting henchmen and hunting dope said to the other dope, "What do you see on the elephant?" "Tusk. Tusks and tusks these days sell pretty well." And brother Ape, or Ape, basically noticed the danger. At this same time, the hunting or the touring company guides to 8 Mountain basically gave Lyle a lighter that looked like a gun, but Lyle did not notice that one of the touring guides switched his gun lighter for a real gun. So anyway, Abe Abe noticed that the gun that the Lyle was you know, hench hunting henchmen were one of them was his gun was pointing towards towards the way of towards the way of champ champ of champ of champ, and Abe was like was like to champ, run champ, look out. And obviously George heard the commotion, and he ran as fast as he could, and Lyle started to point the the gun lighter towards, aiming at George, and basically said, if you come at me at this rate of speed, I will shoot. And so he did. So he did. Again, Lyle thought that he had a gun lighter, cigarette lighter, when in fact he had a real gun. So what happened? Well, George basically fell, was knocked unconscious. He was shot, but since this is a Disney movie, he was shot, but he survived. He was just knocked unconscious. So what happened to George? Well, he was on his way here, to be more specific, the Golden State, California, San Francisco, because Ursula Stanhope, yes, Ursula Stanhope, basically provided a private jet for George to take care of him in San Francisco, and to show him a different type of jungle, meaning the San Franciscan jungle. But what Ursula did not know at the time was that her mother, Mrs. Stanhope, was trying to, or had no idea that she had come back to San Fran, back home from the jungle excursion to 8 Mountain. Mrs. Stanhope figured, basically Ursula said, me and Lyle, we will meet up in the jungle during my excursion, and we will come back home together. Then we will have our engagement party. Then we will have our wedding. But again, Mrs. Stanhope was hoping to see Lyle with Ursula. But what she did not count on is that Lyle was going to basically shoot George, and basically be processed in the in the in the local by local authorities in Bujumbura, Bujumbura, which is the exact location of Eight Mountain, or somewhere. And the guides and the excursion guides or tour guides of this jungle excursion basically identified Lyle Vandergroot as the culprit of shooting George. So so now George is is now or is in the jungle of San Francisco, and as George would in George fashion, he would grab onto things that that look like vines, like lamps, and so then Ursula's best friend in the world, best girlfriend in the world, surprised, basically surprised Ursula and said, "Where is the jungle? Where's your jungle boy?" And to Ursula's astonishment and surprise, George went commando because he hasn't used a shower before, and George slipped and slipped on a bar of soap and hit his head in the shower. So he didn't have a coverall. He didn't have a he didn't have a he didn't have his leopard speedo with him. So Ursula decided to take George out to shop, and they went to Minton Marcus, Helman Marcus, and this is where George saw his three identical twins. Three identical twins. Don't worry, George doesn't have three identical twins. He just saw his reflection three times in the mirror. So with a new look, with an unjungle look, George was living the life, but one problem. Again, this was a whole different jungle. By the way, at this same time, back in the real prison of Bujumbura, Lyle's hunting henchmen were set free on bail, and they basically had a plan to go back to Ape Mountain, get Ape, and basically go to Las Vegas and make it big in Las Vegas, so much bigger and basically big in Las Vegas, catch a big break and do an ape spectacular with Brother Ape. That was it. Meanwhile, Ursula had to go back to work, and she told George, "Wait for me until I get back. I'll be gone for a little bit, but not a lot." George at this time was watching TV and listening to Ursula, and and after Ursula left, George was flipping through the channels, through the TV channels when when a weatherman from the TV spoke to him, and basically, "It's going to be a beautiful day. Get out there. Get out there, out and about." George George basically said, "Okay," and the weatherman that spoke to George said, "Get drink a lot of coffee to to get to enjoy the day." So George said, "Coffee," and basically George went through Ursula's pantry and found the coffee, but he didn't drink coffee. He just chugged 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 a bunch of coffee beans, which made George have sugar a caffeine sugar rush, or a caffeine bomb of a sugar rush, a caffeine bomb of a rush, which eventually wore off. But before it wore off, but before it wore off, George did the unthinkable. Well, he didn't do the unthinkable. I shouldn't say that. He did the unthinkable for a good reason. He climbed up a bridge to help a skydiver, to help a skydiver that the tragic that coincidentally enough was got stuck got stuck got stuck on one of the San Francisco's bridges, not the Golden Gate Bridge, but a nearby bridge. So George basically helped this skydiver get unstuck from the bridge and his parachute as well. So then George saw Ursula. At this time, guys, Ursula was on a ferry, on a ferry, on a ferry, coming towards George to basically get him down from the bridge. But George had a different idea, to swing to the ferry. But since he didn't have a vine, he used the parachute that he unstuck the skydiver from. But George encountered a big funny directional wind that basically directed his direction towards the ferry, but not towards the ferry in the way that he wanted. Towards the ferry, to be more specific, to have a one-on-one face to ferry type of interaction. So, yes. So what I'm saying to you guys, George hit the fairy. His face hit the fairy, and to top it off, he got a hug from Ursula. But what Ursula did not count on, and she had no clue. Also, George didn't have any clue about this. Is that Mrs. Stanhope, Ursula's mother, was watching this unfold from her hair salon, and that's when Mrs. Stanhope realized that her daughter wasn't with her fiance. Wasn't with her fiance at all. She was with a dude that climbed up a bridge and basically swung or basically guided himself towards the ferry and hit his face toward and hit and hit his face towards onto the ferry. To keep it short and sweet, guys, Ursula basically had no other choice to basically face the facts that her fiance Lyle Vandergroot was in jail, and she had no choice but to present George as her friend, which at this time, which George is her friend at this time, but as a friend who's as a friend who's also replacing Lyle since he's in jail. Since he's in jail. Meanwhile, guys, Lyle's two hunting henchmen got to Ape Mountain, and they were able to tranquilize Brother Ape, but thankfully, Brother Ape had a contingency plan. Basically, use a Tuki bird, basically George's male bird / news bird, and basically Ape told Tuki to go get George. So Tuki flew himself all the way to San Fran to tell George about Ape. But in a rom-comic twist, George knew what he had to do. Leave Ursula without saying goodbye and thank you, and go and save Brother Ape. But before that, Mrs. Stanhope basically said to George, I know your truth, George. You are in love with my daughter. But here's the thing. You come from a different world. My daughter wouldn't be caught wouldn't be anywhere near you if I had a choice. So if you really do love her, which I know you do, you need to go far away and go back go back to go back to go back to your mountain. So so with that with that fact and Ape in Trouble and Brother Ape in Trouble, that's what he did. So that's what he so that's what George did. Obviously to save to go and save Brother Ape, but also to knock the other to knock the evil stone of a mother's wish in one fell swoop. So the next day, Ursula woke up and she didn't find George, and and Ursula's basically sad that George left without saying goodbye or without a reason why he left. And then she went to her parents' house, and basically Ursula basically asked her mom, "What did you tell George?" And basically Mrs. Stanhope told her daughter that I told him the truth, that he's from a different world and you are from a higher world. It's not like you're in love with him. And that's when Ursula, without saying a word, by using saying a word, she started to believe, she started to realize and believe that she was really in love with George. That she was really in love with George, and realized that she really adored George. And Ursula basically said to her mother, "You're right, Mom. I'm in love with George. I should go to him and tell him that I love him." Mr. Stanhope, Ursula's father, was like, "I support you. We support you. I support you. I support you." And obviously Mrs. Stanhope basically freaked out and said, "What are we going to tell your guests? Your engagement party guests?" "Well, tell them the truth. That Lyle's in jail. That Lyle's in jail, and that I'm in love with George." Eventually, Mrs. Stanhope screamed her head off, and Ursula flew back to Ape Mountain, and she found her ultimate dude, George, and of course George was like surprised to see Ursula back at the treehouse. And as then Ursula tried to tell him that she was in love with him. Then Lyle had returned, but he was not in jail. Apparently, he was the leader of militaristic group, and he got a big transcript, an ancient transcript that made him a that made him a that made him a priest. So, what did Lyle's new militaristic brother and do? Basically, tie up George, tie up Ape, who was already in a cage thanks to Lyle's two hunting henchmen from before, and Lyle decided to take a very scenic proposal, or scenic wedding venue. He took Ursula down 8 Mountain, but in a form of treachery, in a difficult and scary and and a forbidden path, dangerous path down 8 Mountain. So Lyle had an inflatable kayak, a 2-person inflatable kayak, and he basically officiated his self-wedding with Ursula. Of course, Ursula said, "No, I'm not going to marry you. I don't want to marry you." And Ursula said, let me go. But as luck would have it, George swung saw that Ursula and Lyle were in fact on this inflatable kayak, but she was far away. So he knew what he had to do. Grab a vine and swing as hard as he could, swing himself as hard as he could to reach Ursula. And he did, but the impact of his face hitting another big tree was a powerful hit. The hit that his face hitting this big tree at high velocity, like an F1 car, basically knocked the tree down, but it didn't go timber, didn't go all the way down to the river / falls of 8 Mountain. It basically fell over and acted as a tree bridge. Yes, as a tree bridge. And Ursula, and as luck would have it as well, George landed very. He was laying down on the falling tree, and he had one of his hands out. So Ursula reached for George's hand, and that's how she got got out of the inflatable kayak. Meanwhile, all this time, without realizing it, Lyle basically had vowed himself and married married a lovable and pretty girl ape. And Lyle said no, and then guys, when the dust settled Ursula finally said to George, Ursula. George said, Ursula. George said, George is in love with Ursula, and vice versa. Ursula said, Ursula loves George, and then we see the both of them get married, and Mrs. Stanhope and Mr. Stanhope are very happy. To be more specific, Mr. Stanhope is very happy, and Mrs. Stanhope is pretending to be happy, and she's in total fake happy, but she's even though we don't, even though she's not happy, she's at her daughter's wedding with George, but we know that she wishes that George wasn't in the picture. And with that, guys, and with Shep acting as a just married elephant limousine. This is how this wonderful movie ends. Oh, and by the way, if you're wondering about Ape, he became a star in Las Vegas. And as for Lyle's hunting henchmen, they became a part of the scenography of Brother Ape's Las Vegas show. And with that, guys, this is how this wonderful movie ends. And by the way, Ursula and George have a baby George, and happily ever after. So with that being said, guys, thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and let me know in the comments if you want to. Have you seen George of the Jungle? And what is your favorite scene of the movie? And if you were George of the Jungle, guys, who would your love interest be? Who would your love interest be? So with that being said, guys, thank you for watching. Again, don't forget to hit that like button, and don't forget to hit the notification bell if you want to see my videos, more of my videos. And with that, until we jungle again, bye.